Welcome back to another Cooking Around the World. Today we have an interesting recipe. This is a Jamie Oliver recipe. Jamie Oliver's messy meatball buns. And this is just another good fun while we're at home doing nice simple meals. Because it's messy and it's meatballs, messy meatball subs. You can't go wrong with all that. Jackie, just have a quick look at some of the stuff that we got going into this. I've got some lean beef mince, egg, homemade breadcrumbs, some onions. I've pre-chopped all the onions, some basil pesto, some tomato passata, and some cheese for later on to put on the buns as we go. Okay, let's start this right now. I'll put Jamie's recipe up on when we post this. I've done a few little tweaks to the original recipe, but it's basically just making meatballs with a twist. Now mince. Now we add one egg. I might actually give that a little bit of a quick beat on the egg. Break that up a bit. Okay, one egg. We give a cup of breadcrumbs. Now, so these are a nice big handful. These are my homemade breadcrumbs. I don't chuck away if you have any leftover bread rolls or any bread that hasn't gone to the stage of getting covered in mold. I'll just chuck them into my little my food blender and mince them up into breadcrumbs and stick them in the freezer. They're ready for next time you want to use them. Okay, breadcrumbs. We've got half an onion, cut up very small, diced very finely. The recipe calls for basil, a handful of basil. The basil down the supermarket looked a little bit manky. The basil in the supermarket didn't look good today. It was all dried up, browning and manky. So I've got a little bit of this packet one, got a little bit of that, which I'll use. And I found with this recipe, if you can't find fresh basil, the recipe down the track asks for basil pesto. In the past, I've made my own basil pesto, which homemade basil pesto kills the store-bought one. But just for convenience today, I've got a store-bought one. And in lieu of adding a handful of basil, I'm going to put in a couple of teaspoons of pesto. Now, I've done this before, adding the basil pesto into the mince mix. It gives these meatballs a really, really great flavour. Now, a dash of salt, nice big pinch of salt from our new salt container, a new salt pig. How's that, eh? All the mod cons. Now give it a hit of pepper. Now that's a pepper mill. You could also, if you wanted to, you could add a handful of handful of Parmesan cheese, Jack, you reckon?
Well, there's some in the pesto.
Yeah, okay. Right, now the next thing we can do is go in and mix these up. We have to do this by hand.
You wash those hands?
Yeah, wash them before we start, don't you? Come on. Okay, give it a good mix up. This is a simple recipe, just chuck all this stuff together. Brown your meatballs off. You don't have to cook them hard, you don't have to cook them through totally, because we'll finish cooking them off in the sauce. So you cook these in a lovely tomatoey sauce, which we'll finish off with. Okay. Get our gas on there. That's as simple as this is, about 5 or 6 ingredients, and that's all so far. Simple. Let me just wash my, the cat will get out of the way, I'll go and wash my hands.
It was.
And of course, where there's food, there's the cat. Isn't that right, Rusty? He's silent today. Okay, get a bit of oil in the pan. There's just a vegetable oil. As per the recipe, don't make the balls too big, otherwise your meatball sub, your meatball buns just be so huge you can't get your mouth around them. As per the recipe, meatballs. Okay? Couple of meatballs. In the case of practicality, I've actually found for this recipe, flatten them out a bit as per like a hamburger style thing. Makes it a bit easier to put. If you're using round buns, like hamburger style buns, why not make hamburgers? So I'm going to squash these down a bit. That makes sense? Flatten them down for hamburgers. Much easier to deal with. One more smallish one in there. The other way you can do them, if you're using long buns, long like hot dog style rolls or table rolls, dinner rolls, why not make that shape, which is better known in the business for people in our cooking group, we call them turd shapes. Okay, we'll get the spatula out and we'll flatten them out in a minute. But at this stage, we'll just pause the video and we'll come back when they're nice and browned up. Thank you. Okay, here we are back again. Now I've just browned these off. They're still going to be a little bit rare, but a little bit raw. I've just browned them and that's all. By the way, just done a few fish fingers for our non-meat eater. And I haven't done the entire 500 grams. There's only me eating the rissoles. So I'll cook that up later for another day. What we're going to do now, we've got our pan. I've wiped the pan out a bit. Some more oil. We'll get our onions in. Now we're going to make a homemade tomato sauce for this. And this is where the messy part of the recipe comes in. Our messy meatball buns, we make our own tomato sauce and we slop our meatballs through this. So we just get them a bit of colour. Find out what else I can add to it. Never mind. You could add some garlic if you wanted to. I'm going to hold off on the garlic just over lunch. But if you wanted to, you could add a couple of cloves of garlic to the onions at this point. Just trying to get them cooked slightly. Don't need to brown them up too heavily. Also, you could add chili flakes if you wanted to. Just for the moment, I won't add chili flakes, so the mix will keep it a bit neutral. So this is going to be a straight tomatoey sauce. If you want to, as I said, add garlic, you can add chili, you can do whatever you like with this particular sauce. Just getting some colour there. Now you can add crushed tomatoes, a can of diced or crushed tomatoes. I'm going to use today just some tomato passata. because I had it handy in the fridge. Only about 500 mils of tomato passata. We'll have to salt that up a bit. Pepper. And we just cook that down just a little bit. I'll taste it in a moment, just to check the seasoning. But let's just get that bubbling. Now, if I was doing this for the entire 500 grams of mince, it would make a hell of a lot more than what we have here. I would do it in a bigger pan. Because I've brought the size of everything down for this, I'm using a smaller pan, only using half the mince mix to do our meatballs and our few little fish fingers. So I'm only using a much smaller pan than I normally would for this meal. Make sure you have one with a lid, a pan with a lid that will fit over it, because we will finish cooking our meatballs, because as I said, they'll still be a little bit raw in the middle. We'll boil them out in this mix to finish the cooking. Check the seasoning. That's fine. Might just add a dash of sugar, because that's quite an acidic passata mix. And this, adding a dash of sugar will just negate or neutralise that acidity a bit. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, transfer our meatballs, or our hamburgers, whichever way you want to look at these, back into the mix. Next turn. It's boiling a bit hard, I'll just bring that right down. Now, what I'm going to do next, the recipe calls for slices of mozzarella to go over our meatballs. I didn't have the mozzarella, so what I'm using is pizza mix. That's got mozzarella, it's got shredded tasty cheese and shredded parmesan. So this is as far as I'm concerned, this is one of my little cheats on this thing. I think it works better. Mozzarella on its own, I find, is more of a theatrical. Mozzarella is the theatrical cheese. Doesn't add a lot of flavour, but it just adds a nice little. That's your stringy, messy cheese. Let's just get some nice bit of cheese on all these. Now, what I'm going to do, make sure it comes right down. All you want is a very, very gentle simmer on this, and we'll put our lid on and leave that for 5 minutes or so, and we'll come back and have a look at it. So we'll see you back here in a few minutes. Okay, here we are. This is now cooked for, what, about 5 minutes or so. And that's all that's required. See how we've melted our cheeses down? Now, what we do, we get our bun. You can use whatever size or shape bun you like. I have actually buttered it because we love butter on it. Take 1 teaspoon, 1 heaped teaspoon of the basil pesto, spread it on the bottom of the bun. Then we take a burger with cheese. So you see the mozzarella cheese in there doing this little theatrical stretchy thing. Then we'll take some of our tomato sauce. Oh, yeah. Use as much or as little as you like. And just to make it look a little bit healthy, we'll dress it with a little bit of lettuce. Now you could put this on the bottom, but I find if you put it on the bottom, then your sauce can't run through into your bread, can't soak into your bread. So put it on top. We'll just serve it with a little bit of extra tomato sauce. That's for just slopping your bun through. Need a bit more than that, I reckon. Let's clean it up a little bit. I got a bit messy at that stage. Ah, well done. Hope you're not catching all that on video, are you, Jackie?
I did.
There we go. This is going to be a fun little lunch for us, Jackie. Our messy meatball buns, Jamie Oliver recipe, and we've done a few fish fingers. We've done the whole same routine. There's the tomato sauce, melted a bit of cheese over the top. That's for our little pescatarian friend here.
That's me.
Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy that one.